Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the May edition of Monday Night Magic with your favorite epigenetic geeks, Ken Close and myself, Lori Falk. We are thrilled to be here with you this evening as we unpack a very interesting topic, the next third. What do you really want to do with your next third?
What a great topic, right? I mean, it's so fun to look at life from a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? That's part of the process, right? The cycle of life. Sometimes we're so caught up in what we've done, we forget to look at what we need to do. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun tonight talking about some of the things, and kind of in three ways, right, Lori? There's three kind of subcategories to this.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, we want you to really kind of tune in. This all happened. This topic came about because in my own life, many of you know I was dealing with sciatica, and this constant pain that I was in for a while was limiting what I was able to do. It was limiting my movement, and it got me to thinking, like, I'm not 20 something anymore, probably not 30 or 40 something either. And then what? You know, like, in a moment's notice, you can actually get a stress fracture on your L5, and it can shoot you into pain and limit what you can do in your life. So you really got to think about that's in a moment's notice. One fall, boom, ouch. So make sure that we want to make sure that we are absolutely positively doing what our heart desires, that we are feeling joy, that we are happy, that we are enjoying our lives. Because
you guys are familiar. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking back over those first 2/3, if you will, of my life. And I realized there were some things that I had really, really, really wanted to do. I never happened. And there were other things that just randomly happened. Well, why didn't those things happen? Because I wasn't conscious. I wasn't staying conscious. 90 to 98% of the time, we are reacting based upon subconscious programs. I didn't know that. I was young and silly and naive, and some of the stuff got missed. Well, guess what? Game on this next third. I am going to stay conscious. How about you?
100%, right? Everybody put a comment in there. It's like, you know, all ones for conscious. You know, that's put it in the chat. What are you going to do for the next section of your life? And we got some folks that are in the center section of their life, right? Some maybe even in the beginning. Some people are going to be listening to this that are kind of in the creation, the beginning stages of who they're going to become and who they want to be. And so if we separate things into a few categories in terms of our conversation tonight, such as who am I? Finding out, that's typically what kind of goes on. The first stages of life is like, who am I? What am I doing? You know, kind of stumbling around and getting some skills and some understanding these emotions, these bodies, this environment. And then later on, why am I here? Kind of that question, what's my purpose? What am I doing here? And then finally kind of going into the point of, well, what do I want for the rest of my life? So if we separate things in terms of those three categories, just starting out to unpack the first one around who am I? Michael Singer, you may have heard me talk about Michael Singer and an amazing book I love so much called Untethered Soul. And in that book, he talks a lot about the mind and its purpose, because it's got a very distinct purpose. And the mind's purpose is to make sense of things, just to make sense of things. And if you don't believe me, just look out the window on a rainy day. And what's your mind do? Oh, it's raining. Well, that's kind of obvious. You just got done seeing it with your eyes. You know, you are aware of it's raining, but yet the mind has to say to you, it's raining. And then, of course, there's an opinion of some sort. Oh, I don't like the rain, or I'm going to get wet, or gosh, I planned on this and I can't do that. The mind does its thing, right? Making sense of things. So that book, Michael Singer does a great job of giving an outline of the purpose of the mind. It's our friend, whether I know, Ken, you're nuts. My mind's constantly badgering me. Okay, it still is your friend because its job is to make sense of things for one purpose, and that's so that you feel safe. It's going to give a definition, I promise. It's going to give a definition of everything all the time. Now, whether it's correct or not, that's another story, which is irrelevant because it's just the mind trying to make you feel safe. All right. So if we're here to say, who am I? We might ask the question, am I my mind? This stuff going on inside all the time, this dialogue. Am I my body? You know, what you see in the mirror? Or am I some other force, some awareness that's taking in all that content? And the answer is actually all the above. And so what are we doing? We're if we were to take, and I like to build principles, you guys may have heard that. If we were to take a look back 5 years, just go back 5 years and kind of look at the trajectory of what we've done. You know, we whether your beginning stages, like you're going through school, you're getting skills, whatever, you're in the middle stages, you've built a career, you have a family, whatever. Maybe you're in the second stage or third stages of maybe you're empty nesters, you're out being free in your life, whatever it is. But look at the last 5 years. Take some 10,000 foot snapshots of that 5 years. And once you get an idea, you can see the trajectory, right? And if you were to keep that same trajectory going, you could then look at the next 5 years. Now you can see where you will end up. Well, all we need really is to make one small adjustment, just 1 degree in this present moment. And the next 5 years, even 1% different from the last 5 years, could be an entirely different destination. Right? Some of you guys may be familiar with captains of ships or vessels who travel long distances. And when they leave the port, they set a course for an end destination. This is the end in sight, right? So we have an end in sight. And then there are forces that sway that ship left and right, up and down. Nature does all kinds of things, the winds, the currents, all kinds of things shift things, including the curvature of the earth, depending on how far they're going. So if they were to be off by 1 degree from the port of origin to the port of destination, they may not even be in the same country anymore. So it's pretty easy to do 1% shift in your belief structure, 1% shift in your actions, 1% shift in your ways of being, and wind up in a different port altogether over the next 5 years. So taking into account, who am I? If we look at the last 5 years, we can kind of get an idea. From the present moment, though, we can say a projection of where we want to be, seeing the end in sight, like the port on the other end. And one small shift in this moment will get you into a whole nother country. Right? Does that make sense? Lori, you want to expand on that a little bit as to where we're headed or where we've been, who we are?
Who we are.
Who we are.
Why are you here? I mean, have you ever asked yourself that question? These are really important questions to ask yourself. And you know, it's amazing to me how many people get into their 50s and 60s and still don't have answers. Especially women, because women in of that age group were raised to be wives and mothers. And I can't tell you how many of these women are repressed. And they have had dreams and goals and things they wanted to accomplish in their life, and they just never did it because they were doing what they were told to do, what they should do, as opposed to what their heart's desires. So that heart's desire is so repressed and has been for so long that it takes a lot to really come to find it again. To start asking yourself these questions, and not only asking yourself these questions, but giving yourself permission to daydream. Do you guys remember daydreaming? Long, long time ago in a land far, far away, when we were wee little ones, we all daydreamed, right? But most of us as adults don't. Well, here's a secret. It's something you can do for free. It's something you can do in secret. Nobody needs to know you're doing it. And it is one of the most powerful and creative forces of nature, because the mind doesn't know the difference between that daydream and this reality. So I really encourage all of you, think about that. What do I want? Explore it, feel into it. Find what it is that makes your heart sing. And
When
most
we talk about neuroscience, we talk about epigenetics. These two subjects are they kind of intertwine because the way these bodies are built, as Lori was saying, this daydream becomes a reality. And you may have heard that thoughts become things, right? There's a formula in which in order for matter to actually exist, in Albert Einstein says this and talked about the experiment, the observer effect. And to Lori's point too, as the imagination, another quote from Albert Einstein is, the imagination is more powerful than knowledge, because knowledge has a set point, imagination does not. And so once we start to imagine beyond the set point, but beyond this three-dimensional space, epigenetics starts to kick in. And it is a signaling, an energetic signaling of a cell structure, just simply by thought alone. And like Lori said, the body doesn't know the difference between an experience you're making up in the mind or an experience in the three-dimensional space. It doesn't know the difference. The body is just objective, taking the content or the energy content of the thought and writing it into the genetic sequence to build the form, aka the matter, the mass, the material body. And this is the epigenetics. No different than going to, say, starting a workout program. You go to the gym, you start pumping iron, the environment starts to signal the gene. The actions start to trigger the response. And so the body just says, hey, I guess I'm under some load, right? Some task. And so I must shift this energetic sequence that goes to the cell structures so that they can build matter or material to handle the load. So when you create something, and this is the part of manifestation where, who am I? This definition is, it's very important to write this down, because the moment you write something down, the mind, the cognitive energy transmits that into motor skill. And then the hand writes it out, right? And now it becomes some content on a page. It's literally an archive in time. It is a record of the past that's placed into the present moment that you can review in the future, and it won't change. It'll be content that's consistent. Now, if you just have that same information in the mind, say you've made a list, right? And it's in your mind. How many of you guys have made a list and you got to your destination, you forgot something on the list? I mean, okay, none of you, I know. Oh, well, some of you, all right. You forgot something on your list, right? Oh, why? Because you didn't write it down. And here's why, is because the mind edits based on the present moment. And so if we are subjected to some emotional trigger, right? You're on your way to your destination. Maybe you're going to the store to get 5 things. You're on your way and somebody pulls out in front of you. You just slam on the brakes. You almost crash into them. You build a story around that. I almost died, right? And you get to the store and you're going, dang, what was I here for? You forgot everything. The only thing you can remember is you almost died, right? Now, I know it probably was just barely a little skiff of the brakes, but sometimes the mind makes things up in a bigger, more grand way. So when you write something down, this is the intention work, and the body doesn't know the difference. Every time you reread that list, of who I am or who I want to be, that list becomes solidified within the body. Right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, the mind is an interesting thing. You were talking about a minor traffic situation. Yesterday afternoon, I was driving to the park to take Gabby for a walk, and a car was coming right at me. And my brain, like it was so hard for my brain to process it. There was one car in front of me, and thank God that car reacted first. Of course it needed to, because he was going to get hit before me, and swerved over. But it took like a split second, like, what is going on? This can't even be reality. The mind is a very, very, very interesting thing.
So no, it's again, science says that there are to the tune of 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day within this mind, right? Within this interior space of us, 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. That's a lot, right? And so no wonder at the end of the day, we're like, I'm exhausted. But yet, if you look back on your day, what did you physically do? What did the body physically do? You know, I mean, sometimes you're gardening, sometimes you're driving, sometimes you're sitting at the computer doing Zoom calls. Sometimes there's physical things you're doing, but take a look at your entire day. How much time that you were engaged in that physical doing versus how tired you feel at the end of the day. The mind is extremely busy, 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. And the brain itself is only 3% of your entire body mass, but it consumes up to 20% of your overall energy. So that thought process, that mind work can be extremely consuming, especially when that mind work is fearful or anxious or jealous or angry. These are lower vibration triggers. These thoughts are creating emotions in the body that are consumers, and it's putting the body into that sympathetic system, that fight or flight mechanism. And it takes a lot more energy, it mobilizes a lot more energy for survival in those conditions than if it were in rest and digest or into the parasympathetic, that rest. So 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, 80% of those are redundant from yesterday. You know, how many of you guys have ever rehearsed something you said or did? Yes, well, probably not any of you guys, but I'm just saying you may know somebody that rehearsed yesterday's event over and over and over. And it's not until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon you realize, I'm still thinking about that near-death experience on my way to the store yesterday, right? And the body doesn't know the difference between yesterday and the moment it happened, or today, or tomorrow, or next week, or next year, every time it's rehearsed, every time. And so what we're trying to get at here is, when you're looking at who am I, asking that question, or who do I want to be? It's very important that we write things down so that the mind doesn't edit it based on a current moment experience or a trauma or some issue, because we can get sidetracked, right? We can wind up that whole desire to be something in my next third of my life or tomorrow, whatever it is, it can get sidetracked. It can get held hostage by these redundant thoughts. So these are just kind of, again, building principles about, if we want something diligent tomorrow that doesn't exist today, then it requires some diligence in jotting down the details around that, and being very clear. And Lori will tell you about, even if we don't know what we want, what is the formula? Talk about that, Lori, about the formula. How do we, if we don't know what we want, what's the next thing we can do to start propagating the signal?
Focus on how you want to feel. It's absolutely that simple. years ago, went through a dark night of the soul. And I was invited to a women's manifestation circle on the full moon. And everybody was supposed to come with one thing they wanted to manifest. One thing. Well, I don't know about any of you. If you've ever gone through a dark night of the soul, you kind of lose a lot of stuff. And I had literally lost my house was in foreclosure. I'd lost my car. My life savings was all, it was a mess. It was an absolute mess. And so one thing was ridiculous, but I kept asking the question over and over again, what one thing? And a friend of mine, who's a naturopath, handed me Wayne Dyer's Manifesting Your Destiny. And he said very simply, how do you want to feel? Well, after years of depression, joy seemed like an obvious answer. I wasn't exactly sure I remembered what it felt like. I didn't even know what it was going to be like to experience it again, but I knew that's the one thing. And so we went around this circle, and all these women were like, oh, a new car or money for my kids' college fund. Everybody had their one thing. And then I was the last person, and I said joy, and they all just looked at me. But you know what? I didn't know what was going to bring me joy. That was the beauty of it. So every single day for a few minutes, I would send this energy out to the universe, wanting from the bottom of my heart to manifest joy. And Wayne actually has you do this thing where you kind of take in a deep breath and breathe all the way up through your chakras, and then shoot that emotion out through your third eye while you're toning ah. Apparently, is in every name of God, and it's magical. And so I did it. And you guys, stuff started showing up in my life that I never could have put on the list ever in a million years. One of them was the School of Spiritual Psychology. Someone told me about that school. I didn't know it existed. Well, spiritual, psychology, all in one. Oh my God, those were my two passions. So I wanted to sign up. Well, I was broke. I didn't have any $10,000 to sign up for this 3-year program. But I talked to the professor who ran the program, and he said, I see you. I know who you are. And you're really going to do this work. And I know that. And it's really going to change your life. And I know that. So let's not worry about the money. Let's not worry about the money. I ended up doing marketing work for him for 3 years to pay off that 10 grand. It was beautiful. I mean, I couldn't have put that on the list because I didn't know it existed. It was just, and I got approved for SSDI on the first attempt. Nobody gets that. But I had all this financial stuff was having me be clenched. So how could I attract joy and abundance if I was all clenched? Mm-hmm. I couldn't. So the financial security allowed me to relax a little bit. And then I met a multimillionaire, and he couldn't stand watching me go through this. So he bought me a brand new RAV4. I suppose, he wanted me to have a nicer car than his cleaning ladies did, but I don't know. I mean, it was like, but random. I met the guy on Match.com. I only knew him for 2 months, and he bought me the car. It was just because he had such a huge heart. And guess what he did professionally? He was a spiritual psychologist. Cannot make this stuff up.
Look at the circle. Full circle, right?
Right? It was just crazy. And there were other things. And he took me to Aspen skiing for my birthday, first class tickets. I'd never flown first class before. I mean, it was just like none of that stuff ever would have gone on my list.
And so that's the building block, isn't it? Right? The emotion, because the emotion is to the body as thought is to the brain, and the two combined enrich the experience of life. And we can't have one and not the other. It's a complete enrichment of life, and that builds the experience. And so if you ever ask me what's the meaning of life, and I'll tell you one thing, it is experience. because we can have a meaning of life to give back to our world, to be successful, to whatever, but the bottom line of all of that is still an experience. And the reason we have these vessels, these bodies with the senses that we have, being able to see, taste, feel, touch, is so that we can enhance these experiences. And the brain is this amazing instrument of building synaptic connections, neural networks, and systems that are all these senses, all this information is comprised in these archives. So this is again why we write things down, so that we can place them into an archive that doesn't get edited. So if we are trying to figure out maybe why I'm here, I'm building I'm having some experiences. Okay. Seems like every day is real similar to yesterday. Is my purpose of being here Groundhog's Day? I'm going to have this everyday thing. And even if the days look similar, if we ask a different question, all of the content is being built into our minds about these experiences. If we ask a different question, and the one question is there more? And this is one of my favorite questions. When you wake up in the morning, there's two very distinct points of a day in which we are very teachable. And I like David's answer there when he said that to the response about, on this dating site, I'm teachable. So there's 2 points in which you're the most teachable. And that is just as you're transitioning out of theta into alpha and then beta in the morning when you're waking up, right? And secondly, just as you're transitioning from the beta or analytical self into sleep. So in the morning and in the evening, or anytime you're transitioning between those two states, the best time is that you are teachable in that moment, because you start to bridge the gap between the conscious and subconscious. And the body is a big chunk of the subconscious. Right? It gives information to the brain, and then the brain a lot of times gives us information in terms of images. So in other words, you feel some sensation in your body, you feel it, you look at it, and the mind starts to build pictures around, the causation or the opinion or the judgment, whatever, there's some content going on. So if we are trying to imprint bits of information into the subconscious, then it's a really good idea to do those rehearsals just before bed, and then again, just as we're waking up. Those are great times in which we have some mindful practice, whether it be a meditation or prayer. Prayer is another one. I just want to really emphasize what you guys are familiar with the book, The Feeling is the Secret, perhaps. The emphasis is on the feeling. As Lori said, sometimes we don't have the dialogue or even the imagination or the reference points to know what we want. But if we just know what we want to feel, and contrast is a huge benefit. And I feel like crap right now. I just don't want to feel like crap. Okay, well, what do I want? I do want to feel joy. Just name it. Whatever it is, you want to feel that. So we drop that little breadcrumb into the mind just as we're transitioning to sleep. And just as when we're waking up in the morning, being mindful of that first thought and letting it be similar, so that it can start to build the rest of the day. And as we're doing that process, Viktor Frankl writes a book called Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a psychologist that was captured, placed in the prison camps during the Nazi war, and he saw death a lot. And here is the interesting part about why did he survive and others didn't? We know that was a pretty terrible time in history, but why would he possibly survive? And let me give you a little formula. And it has to do with what's called our reticular activating system, RAS for short. there is a neural bundle between the brain and the body that processes 400 billion bits of information per second. Write that down. Just 400 billion. That's a 4 with a lot of zeros after it. 400 billion bits of information per second. And as you and I are talking and we're interfacing and we're having all this sensory input, everything you're aware of at this moment is only 2,000 bits. Only 2,000. So 400 billion versus 2,000. And we're pretty aware, right? I mean, wouldn't you say you're pretty aware? You guys are awake, you're alert, you're hearing, you're understanding, you're thinking, you're feeling. That's a lot of information, but it's still only 2,000 bits of information versus the 400 billion that's available going through this reticular activating system. Now, that would mean that there's a lot of things going on in the background, right? So this is what's creating our lives, because the reticular activating system, this background content that actually just has you in one moment look right instead of left, and you happen to see some opportunity that you would have missed. It is a driver that happens to get you to pick up a book and read it. It's all of the things that you think are just you doing your thing. How many of you guys ever see redundant numbers coming into your life every day, you know, from whether it's your phone or your clock or addresses or whatever, right? You just happen to look this direction to see this number, and you assign meaning to the number, don't you? I get 111s all the time, or 1111, or I get a lot of that all the time. How does that happen? The way it happens is it's the reticular activating system. I have assigned meaning to 111. I've assigned meaning to 1111. I've assigned meaning to it. And so my reticular activating system gets me to look left when I just so happen to be driving by an address that has 1111 on it. And when I see it, it triggers some process in my mind, some redundant neural networks to feel a certain way or to believe a certain thing. Okay. And if I've assigned meaning to 1111, 1111 as a message that I'm on the right track, as a message that I'm a powerful manifester, a message as to whatever it is that I'm assigning meaning to, then my reticular activating system is going to help me rehearse that and then reaffirm this internal self. So Viktor Frankl knew this, right? And so what he would do was he kept the end in sight. In other words, he knew that he was going to live. He felt it because he was painting a picture of what he was going to be doing in 20 years or 10 years or 5 years down the road. This is, again, why I was saying earlier to take a look at the last 5 years. We're going to look at the trajectory of the next 5. And here's how you do it. When you have an end in sight, that reticular activating system goes to work to move your head left and right, step your feet forward or backward, draw in awareness, content of awareness that builds your opportunity, just like Lori did. All she wanted was joy. She couldn't have predicted in a million years the things that were coming up in her life because she didn't have those on her radar. All she did was one thing was on her radar, and that was joy. The reticular activating system built everything else. It turned you left, turned you right, guided you into the exact position where something would happen for you. And every time in Viktor Frankl's life, he was in a line, and on the left was the death train, on the right was the live train, and people were just separated. And the soldiers that were making it, you go left, you go right, the soldiers were the ones determining who lived and who died. And Viktor's energy projected a knowing and the end in sight that got that soldier just to simply point him to the left as opposed to the right. It was that energy of knowing that just random, it wasn't random, but it was just gave the energy to this person's reticular activating system to say left, right? And this is how opportunities are built. They seem to be magical or miracle, and they are, but we have control of it. We are the one driving the ship. And as in the moment we decide to change its trajectory by 1%, the reticular activating system, 400 billion bits of information per second, I promise you, will start to funnel in certain things that feed your intention. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
This is how it works. This is the power that we have within these bodies. And all I want to do is to say, look, if you will believe in this and just give it a test drive, then what will happen is you'll start to see these breadcrumbs. I'm telling you, it's like the more you see them, and then the more validity you give to the breadcrumb. And then, again, it's like we can say, well, that was just random, so accidental, right? But if you assign a different meaning to it, as it was your creation, your manifestation, your power, then the entire universe, the field around that, your thought and your belief around it, that field expands, it grows. And as Wayne Dyer said many times, I've heard him say that where you place your attention is where you place your energy, right? And you draw that in. Does that make sense?
Totally, totally. I mean, you guys remember way back to What the Bleep Do We Know? Way back, right? Joe Dispenza in that movie talked about scripting his day. Like he would get up in the morning and he would take some time to intentionally decide how he wanted his day to be. And to this day, he does it. And he allows 2 hours every day in his schedule. Sometimes he needs it, sometimes he doesn't, but he allows it so that he has plenty of time to move through whatever it is he's got to move through to get into that space of feeling the way he's going to feel and wants to feel. He taught this to his 16-year-old daughter years later. And that his kids always had to have something that they were creating. And so in the morning, he would have them get up and think about what it was. And the 16-year-old daughter, what do you think she wanted? An unlimited shopping spree. Shocking. Not at all. And so she had to imagine that she was on the shopping spree. She had to imagine what she was buying. She had to imagine who she was buying it for. She had to imagine how exciting it was. And the only thing she didn't have to do was worry about how it was going to happen. So she did this for several months. And all of a sudden, one day, Joe was out on the road and his daughter called and she said, I did it, Dad, I did it. He said, you did what, honey? I went on the shopping spree. And he reaches for his wallet because he's like, oh, crap, what happened? And he said, well, tell me about it. And she said, well, I was at the mall with my girlfriend and this man in a suit came up to us. And he said, aren't you so-and-so's daughter? And my girlfriend said, yes. And he said, well, then you two young ladies come with me. I owe her dad a favor. Mm-hmm. He took them in his office and swiped 2 credit cards and handed one to each of them and said, whatever you want, it's on me. Apparently he owned the store. Joe said, so out of curiosity, how much did you spend in that hour? Oh, Dad, $11,000, of course. I mean, in her wildest dreams, she could have never figured out that that was what was going to happen. So if you, like many people, struggle to figure out what you want, then at least think about how you want to feel. Here's a beautiful little quote from Greg Braden. Quantum science suggests the existence of many possible futures for each moment of our lives. Each future lies in a state of rest until it is awakened by choices made in the present. By choices made in the present. So I ask you, what choices are you going to make? What choices? I'm going to read to you a little snippet called Signature of Change, and this is from Dr. Joe as well. Unfortunately, the soul typically awakens for many of us when we're faced with crisis. When we reach a point in life where we see that nothing outside of us is going to make the emotions we feel in survival, emotions such as emptiness, anger, fear, resentment, jealousy, insecurity, despair, go away. Finally, we realize that nothing in our lives will change until we change. In these moments of crisis, we have to turn inward This is when we have to ask bigger questions. Who am I? What am I doing here? Am I happy? Is this what I really want? These are soul questions. And these are the seeds we plant. In survival, in a state of fear, the unknown is perceived as a threat or a danger. However, when the soul is awakened and interested in creating the next new experience, the unknown becomes the adventure. And so the soul asks, what else is out there for me to explore? And so I ask you, what else is out there for you to explore?
Isn't that great?
It is. And how do you want to feel when you get there?
Look at that formula. Break it down. We just talked about the reticular activating system. Look at the power of that sequence that Lori talked about. Even what Greg Braden talks about. The menu is in the quantum field. All you have to do is select it. But the selection process does not incorporate or include the past, right? It's just the present moment. The past, typically we will place on this present moment, and then it winds up being a prediction for the future. Groundhog's Day. So if we are looking at something different for tomorrow, and we don't even know what that is, it's not necessary to have all the visuals. I'll admit, I'm not the best at visualization, right? I know you guys, well, men are visual. They should. I mean, I'm not the best at visualization. Now, ask me to rehearse an action or some experience, and I can do that all day long. Like if somebody said, visualize a golf ball, I'd be like, okay. But if somebody said, hit a golf ball downrange, oh, now I got it all down, because I can now involve the body, and I can actually then picture all that content, because it's the body's rehearsal of something I'm familiar with. But in the present moment, it's in the present moment that I'm building a new experience, and I'm hitting that ball 400 yards, right? I'm just downrange, and it's a hole in one. I'm making the entire thing up because I can. And the reticular activating system, the next time I put a golf club in my hand, I'm going to have more power. I'm going to have more accuracy, and I'm going to have more potential hole-in-one opportunities. So because I said 400 billion bits of information per second, that's a whole lot of stuff that you don't have to worry about. You don't have to build. You don't have to design, because we're pulling from a menu that is of the quantum field. And the final stage of the creation from that menu is this body. And this body, if it's not healthy, if it is challenged in some way, then that means that we have looked at the past, we've brought it into the present moment, and we continue propagating it into the future. And that's a formula for the Groundhog's Day, right? It's a formula for chronic illness, chronic disorder, because it doesn't, any illness that we know today that's been, that's one of the big 5 killers, it didn't just happen in this present moment. Chronic disease means that it's something that is over and over again being influenced into the body. It winds up being something from the past. And we have to do something in this present moment in order for it to exist tomorrow. So why not doing something a little bit different, shift by 1 degree, and then watch tomorrow shift in its outcome? We wind up in a whole different port, right? Just by 1 degree. So this last section of what we're talking about, the projection for the next phase, right? The next third, the projection. We have to look at one thing, and I emphasize this when I say it. What do I want? So the word do implies action. It implies motion. dynamics. The want needs to be down regulated a bit, because want tends to have an allure of not having. You know, when we want for something, that is a lack perception. But still, there's something at the end of the sentence, the want, but it should not be the emphasis. What do I want? Put an emphasis on the right words, ask the right question, and that reticular activating system will turn on, tune in, and draw what you're looking for right to you. And we have Healy programs to help, right? To help to energize that.
And keep you on track. Because here's the other part. Once you start getting what you want, once you start feeling that joy, your psyche is going to get scared because it's uncomfortable. Even though you don't want to be depressed, even though you want to feel joy, part of you is going, oh my God, where's that old shoe? Where's my old friend? Where's my norm? So staying in that energy is so not easy. And having coached people for over 20 years, I can tell you, I have watched people come to the awareness of what they want, start attracting what they want, and revert right back to where they were. Right back. This changes that.
Mm-hmm.
The Healy coaching module, you've heard me say it before. Yes, I'm still having a love affair with it, especially now that it's getting easier to use. But you get super, super, super clear, right, on your intention. Super clear. And you drop out of your head and into your heart. And you feel the way you're going to feel when that intention is your reality. And now you've created the ability for the Healy to find what's between where you are right here and where you're going to be when you're up here.
It's the bridge.
It's going to find all the stuff that's in the way. Well, not only is it going to find what's in the way, it's going to shake it loose. So those old beliefs that all my clients over those 20 years were holding on to and clenching, you can't.
Mm-mm.
The Healy will vibe them out of the way. And once you start using this and really start using it effectively, you can run this for several hours. I have clients who run it overnight. I don't necessarily recommend overnight unless you're working with a coach, because it can bring up a lot of stuff and a lot of emotions, and you don't know what to do with all that unless you have somebody holding your hand. It's just that simple. I have run this overnight for 8 hours, and I woke up the next day and felt like an entirely different person. I was doing and saying things I would never have done before. Even though circumstances were very similar to the way they had been the day before, I was reacting differently.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to stay conscious, then don't just make the list. Write the intention, get it in that coaching module, and run it every day. Every day.
This is what rewires you. This is what rewires you. And that oftentimes we're so stuck in something that we need a kick in the butt. We need some kind of, unfortunately, some kind of a catastrophic event. And I'd say that people typically change for one of two things, either a catastrophic event or an enlightened education, the aha moment, right? I would rather change in a state of comfort and learning and understanding as opposed to discomfort and disorder. And so we can do that now. And to whatever system you have, whatever Healy you have, the most basic of models that is out there available today is the gold. And on that gold page, on that gold cycle page, there are programs, even on that page, that can help this body align with the future we're looking for. And I would ask this question to you. You don't have to answer, but what is the most challenging aspect of change? I mean, what my definition is, the most challenging aspect of change is letting go, releasing the past, right? And so right on that page, the Gold Cycle page, we have a program called Release. Right. So what do you think that release program's for? It was not built accidentally and not named incorrectly. Release has two main components to it. Number one is to allow the body to let go, to detox. So what I caution you is when you start running this program, if you run it over and over and over again, don't be surprised if you run into some detox symptoms, right? Some stiffness, soreness in the muscles, perhaps a headache, some of those things, emotions that pop up and all of a sudden tears are flowing for no reason. Well, there's a reason. It's this release that's happening, is going on. Okay. So make sure you're hydrating yourself properly and frequently so that the body has its own release systems. The second part of that release is the attachment to the past. This is what makes it easy. Remember I said that reticular activating system? It starts to shift its attachment to things that were redundant signals from yesterday and starts exploring some possibilities for tomorrow. That's the release, right? Everybody has that program. So it's a very, very useful program. Once some of those things happen, on that same page is the care program. How many of you guys wouldn't love just a warm hug sometimes when you're struggling through change? That's the care. That's the care. It is coddling you. It is allowing your body to feel safe. And this is a very important stage, and especially for the feminine, is for you to feel safe within this change, within this vulnerability, within this moment of allowance, feeling safe. So you can feel empowered to do the change, right? So going along with the coaching program, going along with some of the analytics that Healy has, even the most basic of additions, and this is what you can speak to your people you're working with, whatever, when they're trying to say, hey, I need a helper. Well, here we go. Let's tune in and apply these microcurrent programs into the body. And now if you're too sensitive for that, the coil works too, but applying them into the body still starts to shift the energetic expression of this body. And we tend to follow the reticular activating system a little bit more. Okay. So these are some of the formulas that I just wanted to point out. And hopefully you guys have, this will be recorded so you can go back and look at this formula of change and then be able to implement it as to looking at who I am, making that definition, why am I here, and what do I want? And there's a formula for answering all of that and building this new form of you.
And how do you want to feel? How many of you want to feel joy?
That's the hack, right? How do I want to feel? That's a question mark. So that then it engages your curiosity. How do I want to feel? And kick that in.
Absolutely. And I love to write. Writing is actually my first love. Even before coaching, even before art, it comes super naturally to me. And so I created 30 super powerful intentions that are designed to evoke emotions. So they don't just say, I now have abundance. It says, money is like air. It's everywhere. All I have to do is breathe it in. And then it talks about how you're going to feel and how you're going to feel a peacefulness you've never felt in your life. So it just doesn't, it's not like I'm at the store on an unlimited shopping spree. I'm feeling deep, profound feelings of gratitude, of peacefulness, and a deep inner knowing that I can help others and make the world, help the people of the world to have a better place. So if anyone is interested, I'm creating it as an ebook because I know how hard it is for people to write those intentions and to really really get. I actually taught 2 classes recently, both of them in the same title, just on different days, The Art of Writing Intentions, because it's all about getting out of your head and into your heart and really feeling the way you're going to feel when you have what it is you want to have. Then that's when the breadcrumbs come. And that's when you see all those amazing numbers. And Ken, you will love this. I pulled into a parking lot a week or so ago because I was driving and I wanted to listen to a Zoom. And the car in front of me, the license plate was, ready for it? Art 911.
I love it.
Yes, yes. I've been getting lots and lots of signs to start painting again, including my shaman commenting on one of my posts. Whoever told you could stop?
Right? How often do we stop something that was part of our soul's journey because of, something getting in the way, whatever. We feel it. I feel it. When you get back into your soul's journey, back into that purpose-driven action. Oh man, the flow.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable, the flow. Those of you who've been in my coaching programs have heard my story of how I turned my life over to the art and how it unfolded. I mean, it was like another one of those. I could have never made a list. I could have never imagined that any of these things were possible because I didn't even know, again, that many of them existed. So,
all these things, these self-help things that we're doing, and we've made reference to Wayne Dyer, to Greg Braden, to Dr. Joe, all these, and so these are great thought leaders with lots of amazing training and books available. But I heard a quote today, and I want to tell you this quote that I heard today, is that he said, self-help should never be shelf help. So in other words, how many things that we do, and we set it on the shelf, or we get it and we just set it on the shelf intending to get to it, right? This is where self-help should never be shelf help. So I would offer this challenge that everyone just grabs something off the shelf, right? Take this training we just did tonight, the recording, and rehearse it. Take notes, build a formula out of it, and then practice it every day. I know that you've got something on your shelf probably right now that would help to support what we were talking about this evening. And that quote was by Fraser Brooks, which is one of the most highly known network marketing trainers. And he's got tons of success and teaches a lot of people. But again, if we put that training even on the shelf, it's not going to really have some interface or effect on our lives. So I invite you to take something off the shelf, whatever it is that you found valuable, pull it out. We're in springtime, right? This is a renewal of this body. This is an awakening, a blooming, a blossoming. So let's blossom. Let's get something out. Let's re-energize it, charge it up, build some intentions, and kick on the Healy. Let it energize us. Let it help us release certain things that are blocking. And let's see what happens over the next, 30, 60, 90 days. Right. And we're going to be back again next month, of course, but I would love to hear how what you've pulled off the shelf, how it shifts or changes anything. And you can broadcast that out. Right. I mean, some of you guys are on the camera tonight. Thank you very much. It feels like we've got an audience here. I love it. Thank you so much. I love seeing all you beautiful people out there. But not everybody is really comfortable with getting in front of the camera. Right. And that's okay too. So here's another thing I want to leave you with is that if being seen is a challenge and being on the camera, because we know what social media does for us in terms of marketing or business models or that kind of thing, and in increasing our presence. But if being seen is a challenge, maybe that's some work to be done within your lives. That's okay. But if it's being seen as a challenge, that's okay. Turn the camera around. and show the world what you see. That's another way of showing the world who you are without seeing them seeing you, right? Show the world, show them life through your lens, right? And let that be your way of being until you're ready to be able to be seen, right? This is another another modality, another quote from an amazing person who works on social media. It's Scott Kramer. And he's like, some people just don't feel comfortable being seen, taking selfies. Now, I got lots of selfies. I mean, it's like, I like to capture every moment. I had to get a bigger memory in my my phone so that I could put all that stuff in there. But it's moments I love to capture. They mean something, right? And so that's a neural network within me. But it's okay to show the world through your lens what's important to you, because that's going to help fuel you through this change. Right? So hopefully you guys got something out of this, right? And I always love being here with you guys and with Lori.
I know, because I can't hug you in Florida this week. So at least we got to do this week, right?
Yep. I won't be making it to the Orlando event. Circumstances at home within my world kept me from that. But you know what? We have to support the people around us, hold space of love, safety during some of the times of grief or challenge. And so that's what I'll be doing. That's what I have been doing. But feeling all of you guys and being here with everyone here. And I've asked many people that are going to that homecoming event to go and give hugs to people in my name. So I'm going to feel it. Yay. So we can be anywhere we want, just in thought alone, because the body doesn't know the difference. Remember?
Absolutely. I will give everybody hugs for you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you guys for being here, man. It's already been an hour. Oh my gosh. Here we go.
Yes. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you. If you struggle with this, if you have questions or challenges, reach out. We can direct you to resources and tools and things like that. Do not reach out to me with technical questions on the Healy, because I'm just going to send you to Tech Tip Tuesday, or can. But if you are having challenges with, personal growth and anything else that we've discussed here tonight, I'm your girl, and I'm only a phone call or a text away, or an email, and you're all of that. So Gabby says, thank you for being here with us this evening. We've enjoyed it immensely. We love all of you, and we wish you nothing but joy.
Yay. Thank you guys. Big loves, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. See you again next month.
Yes, June 12th.
That's the day after my birthday, by the way.
Woo, we'll celebrate.
We're partying.
Absolutely.
Right. Bye, everybody. Big love.
Bye, everybody. Much love.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being here. Thank you, Lori. It's lovely to see you as always.
Oh, I love co-creating with you, my dear.
Hey. All right. Until next time.
Till next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.